In our world, it's easy to only think about yourself. It's easy to say me, me, me all the time. We all need someone to show us the ropes in what it means to be selfless, someone to ground us. Because when we care about each other, the world becomes a lot brighter. I was lucky enough to have a person like this who brightened my world for 17 years. This person for me was my grandpa, but I'd rather call him Pa. My grandpa was the best person I've ever known, and his selflessness is a big reason why. Oftentimes when someone passes away, they become glorified by the people who survived them, but I've always looked up to my Pa, and here's a low-quality video to prove it. The sound. We're gonna fix the sound because this is funny. That's gonna be loud. Okay, we're fine. My grandpa didn't just teach me to walk around with my hands behind my back. He taught me that in a selfish world, one of the most important things is to be selfless. Pa spent his whole life giving and giving right up until the end, and he impacted everyone he knew. Part of why I think his selflessness was so cool is because it would have been really easy for him to be selfish given the cards that he was given. Carl Skelly was born on July 25th, 1938, the 7th out of 8 siblings. He got no kind of running start. He was actually pretty poor. My mom's passed to me stories that he told her about when he and his family lived on a bus. It had broken windows and he'd wake up with snow on his blanket. He worked his way out of that, but he never really did it for himself. He didn't want to be this guy with a big house and a lot of money. He just wanted to provide a life for his family. He worked for the FBI briefly in 1957, but it didn't take him long to move home to Lima, Ohio, get a job at Ford, and marry my grandma. He became the father of Cheryl, Leslie, Marcia, and Jody. My grandma said one of her favorite things about him was how selflessly he cared for his family. Speaking of my grandma, she could usually be found saying her coined phrase, "Oh, Carl," whenever he did or said something goofy. And he was usually doing or saying something goofy. Like the time I was staying at their house and I asked if I could call my mom, and he said, "Well, sure, but I don't think she'd hear you from here." He may have impacted his wife and his daughters, but that wasn't all. Pa impacted everyone he knew. Just like I showed you how I've always looked up to my Pa, I can show you how much he impacted not only me, but my sister as well. We both have his handwriting permanently tattooed on our skin. Whenever we got cards from my grandma and grandpa, it would be signed, "Love you, Grandma," and under it, it would say, "Me too, Grandpa." So our tattoos are kind of a way of honoring him and his goofiness. He actually got to see these before he passed, which was pretty cool. I texted my brothers and I asked them to tell me one way that Pa impacted them. You may remember my brother Clay from my last speech. He answered in less than a minute, and he said he taught me unconditional love. And I can agree, he taught it to us all. When Pa was told he had terminal cancer, this was the second time that he had heard the news of cancer. He'd fought the battle before, but he wasn't going down without a fight. He actually went through chemo up until he passed in May of 2016. Chemo was really hard on him and made him really sick, but he kept going. Since he knew his time on Earth was limited, he actually fixed up the kitchen he and my grandma's house. Sounds weird, right? No. He fixed it up so that when he passed, Grandma could either live in the house for years to come, or she could get a little bit more money for the house if she wanted to move. Not only that, but a story I love that my grandma tells is that when he was really sick from chemo, they were sitting on the patio. And she mentioned something about the floor of the patio needing painted, and then she went in to make lunch. And when she came back out, my grandpa, sick as can be, was on his hands and knees painting the floor. That's just who he was. Pa taught me a lot, whether it be random trivia, card games, stupid jokes, or just how to love my neighbor. I think we can all learn a lot from the late Carl Skelly. In a selfish world, being selfless pays off for the people that you impact. My grandpa was my favorite person in the world and the best person I've ever known. If I become half the person he was, I'll consider it a success. I want to leave you with this video of a song I sang memorializing my grandpa. I think it shows just how sorely he's missed. Hallelujah.